Hello everybody, it's Michael Hollands once again for Sound of the Movies. Today I have the pleasure to be joined again by the great David Newman in a career which spans almost 40 years. The versatile and fantastic David Newman has given us many scores filled with musical magic to remember him by. His enormous list of credits includes Frankenweenie, Heathers, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, The War of the Roses, Hoffa, The Mighty Ducks, The Nutty Professor, Galaxy Quest, Broke Down Palace, Anastasia, Ice Age, The Spirit, Pets United, and many more. In addition to writing great film scores, David is also responsible for making sure that film music has an afterlife by staging concerts of classic scores such as E.T., Back to the Future, West Side Story, Star Wars, Singing in the Rain, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Jaws, Jurassic Park, and many more. It is my great pleasure to welcome David Newman.
Hey, Michael, nice to talk to you again. It's weird listening to the list of those films because most of those films would never get made now. There are many, in fact, almost everything except maybe Ice Age that you mentioned would never be made now. Maybe Nutty Professor would be made because I've done recently 2 Malcolm Lee movies, one starring Kevin Hart and the other was the girls trip that Tiffany Haddish and all that. So those are a little bit like those other movies, but essentially movies now are just very, very specifically one or two things. Either very, very low budget independence films, or what we all know is the kind of blockbuster Marvel universe.
So you think films like The Mighty Ducks or also Hoffa wouldn't have a chance today?
I do. I mean, Mighty Ducks they made into a TV show, but they didn't ask me to do it. But there's lots of stuff on TV now that's like this. Though not as many comedies on TV, but there are. There is a life on streaming. Well, it's not even TV, I guess. It's defined as streaming on Netflix and all the streaming platforms. But in terms of actual feature film, where you really do get to sit down and think about what you're going to write at a little bit less of a crazy, hectic pace. I'm sure everyone that listens to you knows this. I mean, this is just what's out there today.
Do you think, Dave, that studio interference is even bigger today versus back then? Or what are your thoughts on that?
No, there was plenty of interference. You mean people weighing in on what you're doing? Is that what you mean?
Yes, correct.
Oh, that's it's the same. I'll tell you one thing: if you're doing a show, episodic show on Netflix or one of these streaming services, it's much harder to be to get interfered with just because there's so much to do. So that it tends not to be. But see, that's the thing about doing a 10-hour show or a 15-hour show, that you're writing a half an hour of music per show. It's just you cannot think it through like you can a movie. It's a different thing. The music isn't as it just isn't as important. One other thing to correct you: I just conduct these films with live orchestra. I really had nothing to do with producing it, except that sort of early on in my career, when I was at Sundance, I was involved kind of overall in the idea of doing it. But there are several very, very good production companies that do this sort of thing. So I do conduct what you read off. I've conducted all those, most of them many times, including West Side Story, which I've conducted the most. But there are other people now. It's become very mainstream now, as you know. I think we talked about this last time we talked. So
we also did, yes, correct. Dave, of course, everybody knows you come from a big musical family. Your father was the legendary Alfred Newman, and your brother Thomas and your cousin Randy are also very successful composers. And I think we also did talk about you actually playing in the violin section of E.T., the great John Williams score.
Yeah, I played violin for 10 years. I played in 400 or 500 movies, probably, or movies and television combined. So I played in probably 20 Jerry Goldsmith scores and 5 or 6 John Williams scores. I played in E.T. in 1941. As I played some on Close Encounters, there's some pickup sessions, and I worked on hundreds of things as a session player in Los Angeles.
And in 1984, you worked with Tim Burton?
I did. I was working with a partner at that time. We did one of those fairy tale theater episodes that there was a TV show that did like our fairy tales, takes on fairy tales, and Tim Burton did one based on Aladdin that James Earl Jones was in. It was Shelley Duvall's company at the time. She was a big, huge actress at the time, if you remember her from The Shining.
I do.
Yeah. So we did 2 things. And actually, we were talking about doing Pee-wee because we were really good friends with Tim and his then partner. And Michael and the guy I was working with, we just kind of fell out with each other. And so he landed on Elfman. And then, of course, the rest of that is history. But Elfman did a fabulous score for Pee-wee, much different than I'm sure we would have done. But that's kind of how that started. That was right at the beginning for me. The Frankenweenie was really the first union session I'd done on a movie where it was all free time. I mean, it was all like normal. Like I was used to playing violin in. I had done some things, but they had been low budget and,
After 84, your career took off, and then you met Danny DeVito.
That's when it really took off with Throw Mama.
Yes.
I had done a movie called Critters with Stephen Herrick, who I did a bunch of movies with, but not as big movies. And Danny loved the music from Critters and was putting it in. Of course, we didn't use anything remotely like the music from Critters and Throw Mama from the Train, which was kind of Bernard Herrmann homage-ish. But that's what really got me going, was Throw Mama from the Train, which I think was 87.
Yes, 87, absolutely correct. And Throw Mama from the Train is still a very good comedy, actually. I like to...
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. I saw it the other night, actually. We watched it. I think it's better than I remember, actually.
Yes, and the score was very appropriate, and the collaboration with Danny DeVito for me also is very important when it comes to your filmography. And you did Throw Mama, you did The War of the Roses, Death to Smoochie, Hoffa, Duplex, and also Matilda. And to me, personally, my favorites are The War of the Roses and also Hoffa. And I just rewatched Hoffa a couple of days ago, and it's still a very good movie. I think it's still one of Danny DeVito's best films. Jack Nicholson delivers a great performance, and your score has also been re-released in an expanded form. And one of my favorite cues of your entire career ever is the Trucker Salute, which is the main theme in its most glorious form. And I think it has been licensed for about 1 billion trailers back then.
It was, yeah. I made more money on the trailers, actually, on the licensing than I did on the movie, to be quite honest about it. That's the weird thing about writing movie music, is you're kind of along for the ride, because it's so collaborative, and it was a mature enough business that artists got their, if the movie was really successful, artists got paid, either with back end or the way their union managed to make deals with the movie studios, et cetera, that, it took 50 years to get that. And now it's streaming, so they have to start all over again. They don't want to pay anything for anything. It really is like it's starting over again in terms of the way it's financed and the care with which it's taken. I mean, music for movies got expensive enough that they took a lot of care with it because it cost a lot of money. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And we, particularly Americans, really value how much something costs as a society. and to our detriment sometimes, but also I think it's a kind of economic engine that drives what America is. So it'll, I'm sure, get solved at some point. It's just a big mess right now. I mean, you just look at the music, the actual pop music industry, or the recorded music industry. What a mess they made of it, And it's just now they're starting to see, well, we can't not ever pay any artists because there'll never be any new artists. And so artists are starting to get paid better. And it's just, it's difficult. The last 10 years, Michael, it's like a sea change. And with COVID, the worldwideness of it, the pandemicness of it, it's just accelerated it. There is no going back to the way that it was before. There'll be movie theaters here and there, but most of them aren't going to, and it's going to be very expensive to go to a movie theater.
Yes, of course.
It'll be a decent maybe experience where the speakers are okay and it looks okay, and instead of going and paying, a lot of these theaters in America, you would go and the speakers would be blown and it would just be in terrible condition. The owners wouldn't keep it up, so it wasn't a great experience. Now we all have great experiences in our homes, so that all is going to have to be rethunk. Unfortunately, it's not great for music.
No. It's good. It's good for the streaming providers, the streaming services. Netflix and Amazon.
It can't last forever. I mean, people will. We have our societies and things that will fight for it, and agents and lawyers, and eventually there'll be a like it was with movies. It'll. I don't know when, but it will happen for sure.
Yes, let's see what happens. And David, before we talked about streaming services and the change of the industry, we did talk about Danny DeVito, and has he actually mentioned that he is going to direct another feature film in the future?
He's always looking at stuff to do, but again, he's of the old school. He wants control over his product, and it's just not the way stuff goes now. There are very, very few directors that get total control over their product. It's just not in the 80s when he was doing it, there were a whole bunch of directors that had what was called Final Cut,
Yes.
And they just won't do it now. It's just, forget it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Spielberg and a few here and there, but even Spielberg, I mean, you still have to deal with you have to deal much more with the studio than you did before. Just not the way it is now. So
yes.
And Danny's like he's a Renaissance man. He does all kinds of stuff. He's got a hugely successful production company, he did have a monstrously successful in Jersey Films. I mean, if you look at the films that they released, I mean, he still's acting. He still has fun. I don't think he needs the aggravation of doing a movie unless it's ideal circumstances. We talk all the time, so we're in touch all the time.
Good.
So I know what's going on with Dan. So it's he's a lovely guy. He's been a great supporter and friend, and he's a lovely person.
Great. Glad to hear that, and hopefully he will make another film in the future. And David, of all the films you've worked on, if I may ask, what is your favorite memory of any film you scored, be it a recording session and or a lasting friendship with a filmmaker? Well,
I would say there are two. One, I think I told this story before, Michael, so tell me if I'm repeating myself. Did I tell the story about the main title of Throw Mama from the Train? You remember, this is really early on for me, so I have very little experience with it. And I wrote a main title, and Danny wasn't there because his third child, Jake, his son, was born the night of the session that we recorded the main title, right? So he listened to it later, and he said he liked it. And then a few days later, he didn't. I had a discussion with him. We were in a studio somewhere doing something or other, and he didn't like it, but he couldn't explain what he didn't like about it. He's not the most, as we would say, loquacious person. He doesn't talk a lot. Sometimes he does, but when he's trying to describe what he wanted with music or what he wants or wanted, it was very hard for him to describe. So I threw out some things, and but I was devastated because I thought, oh God, what am I going to do? Am I going to get fired and all that? But I went home and I got interested, and I wrote another one. And the problem was, the original main title I wrote was just a little too dark. It had really good bones in it, as we say, but it wasn't allowing the scene to be funny. We didn't want to try to make the scene funny. We just wanted to allow it to be funny. So I had my main theme, this little motive I had, which was this little Bernard Herrmann motive that is all through the movie. That was in it, and that I liked that. That worked, but it was a little too dark. So it's like being on a tightrope where you want to lean a little in one direction and in another direction. You want it to feel dark, but you don't want it to be so people feel like they can't laugh and it's not funny. And I really solved the problem because he came and he just loved the second version. And I really believe it solidified our relationship forever. Just because he thought it was magic that he couldn't really explain to me what was wrong, but I solved the problem. So there was that. I will never forget that because it taught me that you can fix anything. You just have to talk, listen, and if somebody's not crazy and just fires you on the spot, you can generally figure it out. And then the other thing, did I tell you the story about Galaxy Quest, the last cue that I had to rewrite on the stage with all the musicians and chorus there? I had to rewrite the last cue in Galaxy Quest when they crash land into the
convention.
Yeah, and it's the whole last scene and all that stuff. And I had a full orchestra and chorus, and the next day they had to be done the next day. They needed the music that night, and I played it, and they didn't like it. And even though I had mocked it up for them, and they had heard it and all that, they just didn't like it. So they gave me an hour, and I wrote in. I had to make it go faster because I knew it was too slow. And then I had to write about an extra 40 or 50 bars. So I sat at the piano and just dictated it, and in about an hour we had the cue. And it was one of the most exhilarating nights of my life, just to be able to do that.
Great.
To sit there. Basically when you're writing at a digital audio workstation now, when you're writing at your computer, that's what you're doing, is you're doing one part. You can only do one part at a time,
Yes.
So I sat at the piano and I'd say, okay, horns, you do this. And I'd play it on the piano. And I'd say like in the movie Amadeus, when Mozart says, did you get it? Did you get it? When he's dictating the Requiem to F. Murray Abraham to Salieri at the end.
Yeah.
That's very much what like writing in a computer is even though Mozart had it all done in his head, you still have to write it down one line at a time. You can't write down a bunch of lines at the same time. So that's basically what I did. And then I'd say, okay, and then I'd say, play it for me. Like he would say, give it to me to Salieri, and he'd take the piece of paper and you would hear in his head what he had done. And he'd say, well, that was right. And then he'd give the paper back, the manuscript back to Salieri, and then say, now do this. And he'd sing it, and that's what I did for about an hour. It was a million times better than it would have been. It was one of those transcendental moments for me that to this day, that's, I think, one of the best cues I've ever written in terms of what a movie needed and giving it what it needed. I don't, to an intrinsic degree, view myself so much as a composer as I do an artist that is working on a movie and giving a movie what it needs.
Great.
I haven't had great experiences writing concert music, at least yet. Maybe I never will, but for movies, this was one of the most thrilling nights of my life.
Right. And Galaxy Quest, especially in the third act, the score really takes off. It's really, really a textbook example of what film music can do and also should do, if I may say so.
Yeah. And you know what was great about that movie is you talk about intervention. Now there was intervention with the director and me and the editor, but that's artist intervention. That's artist to artist. Nobody said anything from the studio. We never got any notes. We made that movie. That movie was posted by the four of us. By me, the music editor, Jeff Carson, Don Zimmerman, the editor, and Dean Pariseau, the director. We finished that movie all on our own. And they marketed it horribly. They didn't do, there's a great documentary about the making of it. If any of your viewers want to, I think it's on Netflix. I forget what it's called, but if you just Google documentary about Galaxy Quest, it's a fantastic documentary that holds no punches. It tells what happened. I did that movie live right before COVID during Comic-Con in San Diego with the San Diego Symphony. That was a thrilling night as well. I also did Matilda live the year before in Houston in an outdoor arena that Danny narrated. So we did the movie live with Danny doing the narration live, which also was a wonderful, wonderful evening. A highlight for me.
Right, I'm sure it was, and Matilda also a very lovely movie, great score, and thank you again for telling the Galaxy Quest story. I can't even imagine the the pressure of doing the whole thing. And speaking of pressure and tight deadlines, Dave, if I'm not mistaken, there are two movies, or at least two, which posed also a great challenge, and Honeymoon in Vegas and also I Love Trouble. I do recall reading the editor Paul Hirsch's autobiography, and he also states how difficult it was for you to score I Love Trouble, the Nick Nolte, Julia Roberts movie. Yeah.
They threw out Elmer Bernstein's score. That was just a crazy situation. I think Elmer Bernstein just got fed up with the director and it was the Meyer, Nancy Meyer and Chuck Meyer and
Charles Shire, yeah.
Shire, yeah. And they're difficult, they're lovely people. It's just they can be difficult making a decision. And I think Elmer got really upset, and it was and there was just a ton of music. I mean, and so I think I ended up writing about 41 minutes I wrote. Okay. So, but there must have been an hour and 10 minutes of music in it. So there was like maybe seven to nine other composers that wrote cues, and none of it sounded remotely like me. It was a mess. It was a mess to the very, very final second. I remember the last cue we did was an afternoon, maybe it was a late morning afternoon session, and I think they took it to the dub and finaled the dub, and that was it. That was the end. I think we finished the day they finished the dub. They're great people. They're really fun to be around, and they just can't. It was just, I did another movie for Chuck, The Affair of the Necklace, and we had a great time. That wasn't but they didn't have any. He didn't have any money on that movie. On I Love Trouble was a big Julia Roberts movie at the time. It was, there were many, many, many cooks in that movie, and as you say, there was a lot of interference in that movie, and so it was kind of crazy. That was I had a wonderful agent at the time, and I was with Alan Silvestri, and I are really, really good friends. We've been friends since I think '88, and Alan's the one that got me the movie, because Alan couldn't do the movie, so they had hired Elmer Bernstein, and then they fell out, and then Alan recommended me, and Larry, our agent, Larry Marks, who was great, just kind of helped me through it. I mean, it was a nightmare, but I liked the score. I just, none of it, all the cues that I didn't write just don't sound anything like me. We never had a chance to think about it, to figure it out and make it cohesive, you know. And, you know, of course the movie did, you know, nothing, and it wasn't a great experience at the end. But I wrote some music I really enjoyed. They were really nice to me about it. So nobody was messing around with me very much. So
thank you very much for elaborating on that, Dave. And I would like to briefly discuss Other People's Money. You've done so many movies, and of course you need to bond with the characters, you need to work with the filmmakers, and so on. And Other People's Money was done in '91, if I remember correctly.
And it was that was also a rescore. It was originally Angelo Badalamenti. That was a score that was thrown out. And I remember going to Toronto for one day, and like, you know, you get a call and you're on a plane the next morning, and going up, and then I was on a plane back, and I started writing. And I remember Larry Marks, my agent, really helped me through that movie too, because I wasn't able to do any mock-ups for him because he wasn't around. It was kind of complicated. But I had like a little computery arpeggio thing at the beginning because I wanted something to like delineate his obsession with money and sort of the obsession in America with the corporate rating thing that was going on at the time, which is what it was a play originally, what it was about. And I think Danny got me on the movie. And Norman, he was another odd, I mean, what a director. I mean, I'm a huge Norman Jewison fan. I you know, In the Heat of the Night and even Fiddler on the Roof, I thought was just a genius movie.
Yeah. Fist.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great director. And I love Injustice for All, for instance. I love Jesus Christ Superstar, the Thomas Crown Affair. I mean, you know, there are millions of it, but we really didn't get a chance to. And also, of course, one of my favorite movies ever of any movie ever is Moonstruck, and I think that score is absolutely genius. I think that's one of the best scores of a film. That's Dick Hyman, I think, did that. That score, the use of Bohème in that score, but in that way, was just spectacular. I think that's a masterclass in how to use an alternate kind of method of scoring to score a film. And again, Moonstruck would never be made today. I mean, it would just be a TV series or show or something. You know, it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be like it is. And so, but I didn't get a lot of time with him because, again, I Love Trouble, it was just last minute. Okay. Now, there wasn't so much music in Other People's Money. Has there? I don't think there's been an album re-release of that, has there?
Nope, not yet. At least not to my knowledge, no. I would love to have it properly released, yes.
That's 37 minutes of music. It wasn't like I Love Trouble, which was like, you know, almost 90 minutes of music, you know. Yeah, somebody talked about re-releasing that.
I hope it will happen because it's a very good score. You know.
That one should be re-released. You know what else I'd love to re-release is Meet the Applegates. That's the guy that Michael Lehman that did Heathers. That was the movie we did after Heathers. It didn't really do anything, but it's a terrific movie. And also, The Marrying Man is a favorite of mine.
Yes.
The score that the movie Jerry Reese directed with Kim Basinger and Alec Baldwin, yes. Which was, I think, 91. And it's a swing score, but it's really well recorded. And I really enjoyed that. There are a lot of. Did you ever see Life or Something Like It? It's a terrific movie. That's a Steve Herrick movie.
Yes.
Again, it's a movie nobody would make now, but somebody tells her she's gonna die, and it's like Tony Shalhoub is in it, and he's kind of a weird homeless, prophet, and he tells her she's gonna die, and she laughs it off, and then all these other things that he said start to come true, so she thinks she's gonna die, and it's really, and she's a newscaster, and I don't know, I like it. It's good.
Yes, I definitely need to rewatch this one. And thanks for the tip. I haven't thought of that movie in like years, but I definitely need to watch this again. I shall write it on my list.
If I may, there's one more movie I did called The Cowboy Way, which was another big flop.
Yes, Woody Harrelson, Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, but there's a really good Western cue. That's 1994. There's a really good Western cue in that I really like. There's a sequence. There's about a 8-minute sequence near the end of the movie where it's a drama. It's kind of a comedic drama.
Yes.
But there's a big long sequence that's really good. And then, okay, wait, one more thing I'll tell you since I'm looking at this. My score to 102 Dalmatians.
That one too, yeah.
Is one of my favorite scores of all time. And there's a cue in there called The Midnight Bark. Again, that does not have a re-release. That's an hour and a half of music almost.
Yeah. Great score. And I was just, before you mentioned Dalmatians, I was just gonna say Broke Down Palace and the Nutty Professor, yeah.
But there was a re-release of Broke Down Palace. There was a score, a promo. It's old now. I don't know if you can get it anymore.
No. It's a promo. The official soundtrack contains the songs and
no, it's not yet.
And one score cue, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do have a lot of scores that haven't been. I don't think there's been a. Has there? Yeah, there hasn't been a score of Anastasia either. That's all the music in it.
There is an album featuring the songs and about 6 cues of your music. Yeah,
there's a commercial one. There's 6 cues.
Yes.
So it's about 23 minutes, but the score is over an hour.
Yeah, it's much more.
There's an hour of music in it.
They did include some of the highlights, reminiscing with Grandma and the
they did some good. They did some of the good stuff. I also would love to release Bowfinger, though it's only 23 minutes of music.
You should, maybe get in touch with, some of the labels to have it.
They call me. They'll if they want to do it, they'll do it. It's cool. There is an Affair of the Necklace that's still you can get.
You can still the Affair of the Necklace is that was a Varese release if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Yeah. That's a good score, and there are a couple of others which they should release. They should release the Mighty Ducks properly, for instance.
Yeah, that would be great. The Mighty Ducks, there's 33 minutes of underscore.
It's great. It's great to talk about albums which haven't been properly re-released, but there are several of your scores which have been given at least a decent presentation. The Spirit or the Phantom, for instance. Those are really good, and Operation Dumbo Drop, for instance.
Yeah. Too bad that title is.
The title isn't, wasn't probably the best choice, but I can see why they, of course, called it that way. But
I know, but it doesn't tell anything about what the movie is about. It just makes it seem silly, and it's not. It's not a silly movie.
No.
Yeah. Also, I like my Score to Paradise that Entrada did.
Yes.
That's a good release. I think that's still available too. So.
Yes.
Go out and get them, guys.
Guys, get them. That's
And then I think the Sandlot came out with something too.
They did a compilation of War of the Roses and Sandlot, and then the Sandlot came out as a single release. Well, as a complete score release, yes.
Yeah, it said the 25th anniversary edition. It came out. I think that has 41 cue. Was there that much music in that? Oh, and there was a lot of music in that movie. Yes. I remember we did a bunch of cues at Fox when we got back. We did most of it in Salt Lake City. I think that's when I was doing Sundance. I did Sundance. I ran the Composers Lab for about 4 years.
Dave, you also did work in Germany on a couple of scores.
I did.
Animals United, and also Tarzan. Where did you record Pets United?
Animals United and Tarzan, we recorded at Teldex in Berlin.
Yes.
Chris and I had the greatest time in Berlin. We had the greatest food. We loved the people there. The musicians were great. The food was great. I love sausage and bratwurst and
beer.
Yeah. Oh, the beer. There's not even, you can't even call beer here beer compared to there. Though I guess it's better now in America, but it's God, what just amazing. It was so much fun. And Berlin is an amazing city, an amazingly open. I mean, for somebody that had never been to Germany and had no idea, I was in Munich maybe in the late 80s for an afternoon to score something like a small thing that I did. And I'd been in the Frankfurt airport several times, which I hate. God, Berlin, it was just, we just had the best time. I loved it. And the musicians were great and the engineers were great. So I've been there 3 times doing a film.
I must also congratulate you on Pets United. I think that score offers a great diversity. The jazz big band elements, the percussion, the action elements. So that's a really fun score and one of your most recent ones. And of course also the Green Eggs and Ham, which is also on Netflix. And Pets United, guys, is also available on Netflix. Yes. Did you also work with Florian Teslov again on Pets United?
Oh yeah. I always worked with Florian and Christoph. I think. Did you ever meet him? Was he there? I think they might have been in Schleswig-Holstein.
They were. Yes.
Yeah. The music supervisor, kind of coordinator. It was all the same people. That's who we knew. Those were our that's who we knew. And then the engineer Tobias Lehman is his name.
Yeah.
One of the head engineers there.
Dave, is there anything else you would like to add about your career, about music in general? Anything else that comes to mind?
Nah, I blabbed on him enough. So.
I think we need to do another episode down the road to dive in, into the.
Love talking to you, Michael. It's great to hear from you. I remember fondly the Schleswig-Holstein thing. But remember that little restaurant in the hotel? I think you were. There's like that one hotel in that place that we stayed in. The rest of it just like was like no place to eat anywhere except in that hotel. So it's funny. I except my wife and I. We love food. My wife is a gourmet cook, and there are no potatoes in the world like there are in northern Germany. The potatoes are just the best.
Yeah, these are very good.
We love that. So, all right, Michael, I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave. Take care and stay safe, stay healthy, and let's talk soon.